Before we begin, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered if someone could commit a major crime, disappear into the night, and never be found again? Not for a week, not for a year, but forever, because in 1971, a man boarded a plane in the United States under a name that may not have even been real. A few hours later, he would walk away with thousands of dollars, jump out of an aircraft, flying through a storm, and become one of the greatest mysteries in FBI history. His name was D.B. Cooper, or at least, that's what the world came to call him. On November 24, 1971, a quiet man dressed in a dark suit purchased a one-way ticket from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. Nothing about him seemed unusual. Witnesses later described him as calm, polite, and ordinary, the kind of person you would never look at twice. He boarded the plane, took his seat, and ordered a drink. Then, everything changed. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant. At first, she assumed it was a phone number from a passenger trying to flirt. She slipped the note into her purse without reading it. That's when Cooper leaned toward her and quietly said something she would never forget. "You'd better look at that note." When she unfolded the paper, her heart sank. The message claimed he had a bomb. He then opened his briefcase, just enough for her to see what appeared to be explosives inside. There was no panic in his voice, no shouting, no threats, just calm instructions. He wanted $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck, waiting when the plane landed. The flight attendant relayed the message to the cockpit. Soon, the FBI and airline officials were scrambling to respond. As the plane continued toward Seattle, authorities made a decision. They would give him what he wanted. When the aircraft landed, the passengers were quietly released. The ransom money was delivered. The parachutes were delivered, and D.B. Cooper remained on board. Then came the part that would turn the crime into a legend. After refueling, Cooper ordered the plane back into the air. He instructed the pilots to fly toward Mexico at a relatively low altitude. It was dark, rain was falling, the winds were strong, and somewhere over the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper made his move. As the aircraft moved through the darkness, most of the people on board had no idea they were witnessing a moment that would become part of American history. The crew remained in the cockpit. Cooper stayed in the rear section of the plane. And outside, there was nothing but rain clouds and miles of wilderness below. At some point during the flight, Cooper instructed one of the flight attendants to leave him alone and return to the cockpit. She obeyed. It would be the last confirmed time anyone saw him. Minutes later, the crew noticed something unusual. A warning light indicated that the rear stairway of the aircraft had been lowered. The plane also experienced a sudden change in pressure. It was brief, but enough to suggest that something had happened. Something significant. Somewhere in the darkness over Washington State, D.B. Cooper had opened the rear stairs of a moving airplane. And then he jumped into a cold November night, into heavy rain, into strong winds, carrying $200,000 in cash, and, from that moment forward, he vanished. When the plane finally landed, authorities rushed on board. They searched every corner of the aircraft. The bomb was gone, the money was gone, and so was Cooper. The only things left behind were a few clues: a black clip-on tie, some cigarette butts, and a mystery that would consume investigators for decades. The FBI immediately launched one of the largest manhunts in its history. Agents searched forests, mountains, rivers, remote roads, and thousands of square miles of wilderness. They interviewed witnesses, tracked leads, analyzed evidence, and followed countless tips from across the country. But every lead seemed to end the same way, with more questions. Some investigators believed Cooper died during the jump. After all, the conditions were terrible. He jumped at night, into a storm, over unfamiliar terrain, wearing business clothes. Many experts argued that surviving such a jump would have been nearly impossible. But there was one problem with that theory. No body was ever found. No parachute was ever recovered, and no confirmed remains linked to Cooper were ever discovered. Years passed, then decades. The mystery only grew. Hundreds of suspects were investigated. Some confessed on their deathbeds. Others were identified by friends, family members, or amateur investigators. Yet none could be conclusively tied to the crime. Every promising lead eventually collapsed. Then, nearly 9 years after the hijacking, something unexpected happened. A young boy was digging along the banks of the Columbia River in Washington. As he played in the sand, he discovered bundles of cash. The bills were heavily damaged, but the serial numbers matched the ransom money given to D.B. Cooper. The discovery stunned investigators. For the first time in years, there was physical evidence connected to the case. But instead of solving the mystery, it created an even bigger one. How did the money get there? Had Cooper buried it? Had it washed downstream? Had someone else moved it? No one could agree. And once again, the investigation reached a dead end. As the years continued, D.B. Cooper transformed from a criminal into something else entirely, a legend. Books were written, documentaries were produced, theories exploded across the internet. Some believed he escaped and lived the rest of his life in secret. Others insisted he died the night he jumped. A few claimed they knew exactly who he was. Yet none of those claims have ever been proven. In 2016, after more than 4 decades of investigation, the FBI officially suspended active efforts to solve the case. The mystery remained open, but the resources devoted to it came to an end. And so, one of the most extraordinary crimes in American history remains unsolved. No confirmed identity, no confirmed body, no confirmed answer. Just a man who boarded a plane under a name that may not have been real and disappeared into the darkness. And perhaps the most unsettling part of all is that somewhere, someone knew exactly what happened to D.B. Cooper, but that truth may have disappeared with them. So what do you think? Did Cooper survive the jump, or did the wilderness claim him forever?